What's up, YouTube? My name's SlakingRetaliation, and I'm here with my boy Buzz.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about generations, Pokemon generations to be more specific, and what is the best generation in Pokemon. So there has been a total of 7 generations in Pokemon, starting with Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 3, etc., etc. In my opinion, I like all the generations except for Sun and Moon for reasons I will explain later. But in terms of generations, Buzz, what do you think is the best generation and why?
Well, for me, the best generation I find was Gen 3. Because that was the time I first got a Pokemon game. I first owned it. I originally played Pokemon Blue on the Game Boy. And then all of a sudden I got it into it. I was borrowing it from a friend. I said, hey, let me buy myself a Pokemon game. So I ended up getting Pokemon Ruby first. Then I got Sapphire. And finally I got the best of the 3, Emerald.
And just to reference this, Pokemon Emerald came out in the early 2000s, so you were around 7 or so?
7 or 8, I think.
Yeah.
Pokemon Emerald came out in 2005.
So yeah, like around 7 or 8. So this was the epitome of Pokemon games in your childhood, right? Like all the other Pokemon games before, like Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Red, the remakes of which came out before Pokemon Emerald, right? The remakes, Fire and Red,
Yeah.
and so so those came before Pokemon Emerald. So this was the epitome for Pokemon games, because when this game came out, the next Pokemon game came out in 5 years or so, I think it was, because we had Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Pokemon Emerald, and then we had Pokemon Diamond for the DS. So it took 5 years for another game to come out after Pokemon Emerald, right?
Yeah. One thing I remember is I was at school. I can't remember what grade I was in, whatever, grade 5 or something. Anyway, so me and my friends were talking yo man, did you hear about the new Pokemon coming out? What the hell, there's new Pokemon? And they said there's going to be a grass turtle. At the time, I didn't believe them, so I was going to say, why the hell would you have a turtle that's a grass type, And I didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Yeah, you think a turtle would be a water type, but in Pokemon Diamond, they just broke all the rules, and that's why I like it as a generation for the anime and for the actual game.
See, one thing I have to say about the anime throughout the whole time that it's been on, well, I haven't really watched a lot of the original. I've seen a lot of it, but not all of it. What I've noticed is it gets boring after a while. That's just me, because you're always constantly, all the episodes are either Team Rocket steals Pikachu or Pokemon and they gotta stop, right?
Yeah.
I understand the show's for kids. Oh, come on, give some variation to this.
Yeah, there was a lot of filler, especially after the second season, which was in Johto. Yeah. There was a lot of filler. Yeah. But the good thing about Johto as a region, or as a generation, was that
Shinies.
Obviously Shinies, was that because Generation 1 was so good, it was the breakout for Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Johto was kind of an underrated, as some would say, generation, because it had brilliant starters. The design for the starters in Johto was brilliant. It was basically a fucking crocodile,
yeah, but one thing that
a leaf, and what was the other starter? Freaking flamethrower. That's pretty cool if you ask me, right?
Yeah, they were pretty cool. But it was hard, because when it came out, Pokemon just came out, right? It was Ruby and not Ruby and Sapphire, Red and Blue.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to make another game that comes out after, especially if it's the second game of the series, because you don't know if it's going to be as good as the first one. So I can see why a lot of people were iffy about it, but
Yeah, especially with I think they remade the game 3 times, Silver and Gold. They remade it, the colored version, and then they remade it into Soul Silver and Heart Gold, which were good games in its own right?
Yeah. It came out when Diamond and Pearl came out. I'll tell you exactly. So, for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, that came out 2010, March 14th. They released the remaster of Diamond and Pearl, which was Platinum, Then they released Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Yeah, so it's kind of like in between Emerald to Diamond and Pearl, there was a huge gap of how many years? How many was that?
Diamond and Pearl came out April 22nd, 2007, and Pokemon Emerald came out March 1st, 2005, so it wasn't that long.
I remember it being longer, but maybe that's just because I was a
It was
kid.
just
But
the wait that was so long.
it was a pretty long wait, even regardless. Like normally right now we get a Pokemon game every 1.5 years, right? Like they announce it in right after, like in the case of I think it was Diamond and Pearl or Platinum, which was the remake. I think Heart Gold and like it was announced right after, like they were already working on, or was it leaked? I don't know, but that's something that I would have to search up again. So in terms of Generation 1 now, like it's a lot of content because Generation 1 was so new, and it's the only Pokemon game and the only anime series or the only anime seasons that had over 150 Pokemon. Like this was right out of the bat just pushing you into this direction of greatness, basically, because that's what came out of season 1 or Generation 1 was that greatness of Pokemon, and that's why the nostalgia aspect for this is so much greater than the previous or the subsequent generations, right?
Yeah. One thing that I have to say that I really enjoyed about Gen 2 when I played the remasters was that they included, I'm pretty sure it was in the original games too, they included both Kanto and Johto.
Yeah, and that hasn't been done since, right?
No.
Especially in Diamond and Pearl, it was, for me as a kid, I don't really remember it now, but that was a huge section, but it was trumped by Johto, which had like 16 something gyms, right? Because it was that's something that they haven't done since for any reason. I have no idea why they haven't followed that path again.
Well, I guess because what they did with Johto and Kanto was they made Johto like the next door neighbor region, right? So it's pretty much like the Kanto was Ontario and Johto was Quebec, right?
Yeah.
They were right next to each other. But all the other regions haven't had anything like that where it's two regions put together, you know?
Especially Hoenn and Sinnoh.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, they were like Earth and the fucking Pluto, man. Like they were that far apart. It's interesting because they could have did the same thing with Hoenn. They could have did the same thing with Sinnoh, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could have combined both of them or combined all four, and then we have a game where the replayability is there, obviously. Right now, it takes, like, how long did it take you to finish Sun and Moon? In hours, like, in terms of hours?
I don't know. I know it took me, like, because I took breaks in the middle of school, like, it was maybe 4 days, I think, or a week at most. Well, then again, I was playing it, like, every second of the day, so...
Yeah, so that's, like, 40, 50 hours, right?
Yeah.
Of gameplay. And in Johto, I played it, the Soul Silver remake. It took me almost 100 hours to beat the game because I wasn't just trying to beat it as soon as possible. I was enjoying it as much as I could, right? To get the feel aspect about it, because I didn't play the originals.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can enjoy about Generation 2, but I didn't really like Generation 2. I thought the games were decent, but the mechanics of the game and kind of the Pokemon design were just like mediocre to me.
Yeah. Stars, I think, were the best ones. Well, except for Chikorita. I didn't really like the Chikorita's whole evolution line.
It's basically a piece of a leaf turning into a bigger leaf.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, how it's basically a turtle going into a bigger turtle.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
And a small dragon going into a bigger dragon, and a leaf turning into a bigger leaf.
A leaf turning into a flower, actually.
Oh yeah, I forgot he has a
bulb into a big flower.
Yeah, I forgot he has a flower on top of him, Venusaur. So in terms of Generation 3, which is your favorite generation, as you stated earlier, the starters were unique. kind of. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a chicken turning into a bigger chicken. It was a chicken turning into, like, a freaking swole-ass bird, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the design was there. It wasn't like in Generation 6 where we had fucking keys as a Pokemon, right?
Keys.
Like, it wasn't like that. The design was there, and that's what made Generation 3 such a good game and such a good generation overall, because the design was there. And it was in a period where, I confused it earlier where I said 5 years, but it was actually 2. But it was in a period where, like, what other games were there in 2005 that could even compare to the replayability of this game? I replayed this game over and over and over. Every year I'd replay Pokemon Emerald. I'd start over again, and I'd see how far I can get, right?
And choose like different Pokemon you never used before.
Yeah, like I did 3 playthroughs originally with all the starters, right? So I never did it since. I don't know why.
Another thing I've noticed, I just read about Gen 1, Gen 2, the regions, the actual real life locations that Johto and Kanto are based off of, I'm pretty sure they're like in real life right next to each other. So I guess in a way that makes sense. Whereas Gen 3 was like one of the not Gen 3, Gen 4 was like one of the islands for in Japan, and then Gen 5 was New York or America, and then you got Gen 6, which was Paris. Let me see if I can find out the name of the island.
So while he does that, I'll just kind of explain my favorite generation. My favorite generation is Generation 4. Generation 4 is so good because the design wasn't too good. It was basically you have a duck, you have some stupid like turtle again, a grass turtle like Buzz said earlier, and then you have a fire. What was the starter again for that? Fire monkey. The design wasn't there, but it was so good. Like the story was it's a Pokemon game. You're not gonna play it for the story, but the replayability was there again, just like Emerald.
Oh, and that part of that region in Japan that Sinnoh's based off of, I don't know how to say it. I'm not Japanese, but it's at the very top. I don't even want to try to pronounce it.
Go ahead. It'd be funny.
Hokkaido.
Generation 4 was good because of its replayability, but it wasn't good just because of that. Generation 4 was kind of the height of mechanics in Pokemon games. You had endless replayability in the last, after you beat the game, after you beat the Elite Four. You have the tracks. You can freaking make soups in the game. You can do berries shit. You can... Every town had like something like that, right? Like, and you don't get that. You get like useless towns in Sun and Moon, where the first town, like, what do you do in the first town in Sun and Moon?
Nothing.
You do nothing, right? Like in the first town in Sinnoh, you have the professor, which every starting town has. You had your rival's house, which every town had, but you also had other houses that were actually useful in the end game. So that's what I really liked about Sinnoh.
One thing that I liked, well, it was in Emerald and Platinum that I liked, and it added a lot of replayability, and I wish they add it anytime like soon, is the Battle Frontier.
Exactly.
That adds like in the base Diamond and Pearl, you got the Challenge Island or whatever it's called. I can't remember, right? It was fun. It was an okay post.
It's basically the Battle Frontier number 2.
Yeah, but it didn't have that that the Battle Frontier had in Platinum and in Emerald.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of in both Emerald and Diamond. And that's what makes them so good, is even after you beat the game, there's stuff to do.
You have something to do.
Yeah.
In Black and White, they had that end game where it's like the battle tree or whatever it was called, battle tower, whatever it was. It gives you something to do, and you can train your Pokemon there. And the guys are like level 60s and 70s, so it had some post game, right?
Yeah.
Then you have X and Y, and all the remakes that came in X and Y. All you had was the Battle Maison.
Yeah. Like, I don't know why they removed the Battle Frontier from ORAS. Right?
It makes no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense at all.
And it just pissed me off because once I was done the game, I had nothing to do. There's nothing.
Yeah. Did you like when I was playing the game, I expected the Battle Frontier after, right?
Yeah, that's what I was expecting to, especially in the remake for Ruby and Sapphire. Okay, at least the battle tower, right? Nope, nothing. Fuck. Battle
You just
Mason.
have the fucking Battle Mason where they have the Pokemon have full IVs and
hacks, man.
EVs. The
And
fucking
they have like hacked abilities or
yeah, they have hacked abilities.
get.
The trainers know what you do even before you do it. They're that
Exactly.
good. No, I didn't play X and Y. I didn't even watch the anime, so I can't really have an opinion about X and Y, but you played X and Y. Can you just tell me a bit about...
Well, one thing that I thought was pretty good in X and Y was the story. The story, it wasn't like insane like in the black and white story, but it had a nice story to it. It was enjoyable. The graphics were amazing because it was after black and white and they had those nice 3D models, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that I enjoyed was it was easier to get shinies in that game. They made the shiny chance increase.
What was that again? Poke Radar or something like that?
There was Poke Radar, and then you got the Pokemon Safari, I think, or Pal Park.
Oh
or
yeah, the
something. I
Friend
don't remember what it
Safari
was.
or something like
Friend
that.
Safari, that's what it was. That was like the only post game you could do besides battling online. Like, I don't like battling online. I don't have the time to train a team.
Yeah.
I just want to have something against AI. So all I did in the post game for that and in Sun and Moon was shiny hunting because there was no post game whatsoever.
Yeah, you did have those aspects in the game. Unlike where they just removed everything from the post game and you had really nothing to do. You beat the game and
Yeah.
you just put it away in your drawer, which is sitting right next to me. Right there, sitting there.
Now, even with my DS, I'm right now what I'm playing. I don't even play Sun and Moon that much anymore. I'm playing Pokemon Red because I got the virtual console of it on my DS. I've been playing Pokemon Red because it's something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing that surprised me, though, I have to say about the Gen 6 is that they didn't have a third main game. Because you know how usually they have Red and Blue, and then Yellow, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Black and White, Black 2 and White 2, but in Gen 6 it was only X and Y. And the only other main game, well, it wasn't really a main game, it was a remaster of Ruby and Sapphire, right?
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I swear they were thinking about remaking it. Like, there's so many rumors that the next Pokemon game was going to be, like, the second version of that,
Remaster,
right?
Yeah, but I hope they do that for Sun and Moon because they can fix some things and hopefully add the damn Battle Frontier.
No, I haven't... Sun and Moon has been sitting on my desk since December because I have no time to play it, so I haven't actually beat it yet.
The story's okay, but you know, it's all about Nebby though. Nebby's more important.
Yeah,
the most
Nebby.
important thing in there.
Nebby, the freaking cute little galaxy in a like
Yeah.
little ball. Yeah, it's like you just look forward to his cutscenes basically.
Pretty much. It was fun, but like again, no post game that I would enjoy, and a lot of casual Pokemon players will enjoy this.
Yeah, the post game was more focused around competitive online battling, right?
Yeah.
Which they drastically improved in Sun and Moon, which I personally liked, but
Yeah.
I haven't even done anything with it because I have no time to do it. And one thing I want to touch upon in Sun and Moon is the fact that, and I know I spoke to you about this before, is the fact that there is so much emphasis on Hawaii and the culture there, right?
Yeah.
When all the other games were based off something, but it wasn't so much emphasis. So I kind of find that emphasis kind of over redundant and kind of stupid.
To me, I actually enjoyed that stuff. Some Alolan Pokemon, they just look really fucking weird. That's all I have to say about some of those Alolan Pokemon. But like, it was interesting that it was I missed the gyms, but what's it called? The captains or whatever they were called.
Captain Trials?
They weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be terrible, but
Yeah, me too.
they turned out to be pretty decent. And have the Kahuna. You
Yeah.
got to beat the captains, and you got to go with the Kahuna. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I didn't mind that too much. I'd rather have the gyms, obviously. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
They tried to like innovate with the game, but they just kind of made it stupid, right?
That's what Nintendo's known for, is innovation.
Yeah. Well, they
Something-
were known for that. I don't know if they are known for that anymore.
Yeah, look at the Switch. There's no other console like the Switch.
I think we get to the Switch another time because I have lots to talk about for the Switch, of course. No, but Sun and Moon is they tried to make a new game, right? They tried to
Yeah.
they tried to innovate as much as possible, but they removed so much good mechanics from previous games or didn't bring back mechanics that were expected to be brought back that it kind of left it a bit dry for me.
One thing that I was iffy about, I didn't really like at the beginning, was the fact that moves, it'll tell you what move is super effective against what Pokemon.
Oh yeah. I thought that was kind of that's very good actually. I thought that was a no-brainer to add, right?
It was good, but when I saw it, I was like, are they trying to make this game for like 2-year-olds? Like, come on. Half the people who play Pokemon, I shouldn't say half, but a big portion of the people who play Pokemon still are like in their late teens, early 20s. There's some young kids, but it's all those late teens, early 20s that still play Pokemon.
Yeah. I know some YouTubers are like 30-something and they're having really a lot of fun with the game, and the game's not designed for them at all, right?
Like one guy that's really big is Jay Witz. You know Jay Witz,
Yeah,
right?
I know Jay Witz.
I don't know how old he is. I'm gonna guess. I hope I don't offend him if he ever watches it, which he might or might not. But I think he's like in his 30s.
Yeah, I would say he's like
20s,
early
30s.
30s, late 20s, around there.
Yeah. And look, he plays Pokemon. He made a living out of it, for crying out loud.
Let's get back into this kind of generation talk. The last generation we want to talk about here, we kind of mentioned all of them except for this one, is Generation 5. What are your thoughts on that generation?
The graphics and everything, it was innovative, right? You got, instead of having still sprites that only move when you threw them out, while they're in battle, you see them like moving around, moving their arms, like Scraggy pulling up his pants and like dropping it or whatever.
Yeah.
And even the story was like, the story was really good in that. That I think was the strong point for Black and White, was the story.
Yeah, I played Black and White, and I actually watched a full playthrough before I played it because I'm a jackass. So I watched a full playthrough before I played it, and I copied this guy, and I still had so much fun. Like that was a game. I knew what was gonna happen, but it was still so much fun for me.
And the fact that they added a whole, like, all 151 new Pokemon. Like, there's not even any older Pokemon. Like, you won't find any Pokemon from any of the gens prior. Unless it has, like, a new evolution in Gen 5. But usually, you know what I mean? They have 100... They just made a full 151 Pokemon.
Yeah, I swear
in
in Gen 5 they made... Or I think this was Gen 5 or 4. They made an evolution to certain Pokemon. Like, they added a last evolution. I know one in Gen 4 was...
Gen 4 did.
Electabuzz.
Yeah, Gen 4 did a lot with that. I think Gen 5 touched in it a little bit, but I don't think that was like the main focus.
No, Gen 4 did a lot of that, I agree. So Gen 5, like how was the map for you in Gen 5?
I liked it because it was different. Because all the other games are based off, that came before that are all based off of places in Japan, right?
Yeah.
But in this game you have, I think it was New York or something, San Francisco or something. It was
I know the main town was based off of New York.
Yeah, it was USA pretty much. The whole region was based off of USA, and it was just nice to have that different scenery instead of having like Japan.
Yeah, based off Japan.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be argued for Sun and Moon, although I personally wouldn't argue that. But I would play devil's advocate and say that that is something that they tried to do, but I don't think they do it effectively. I think Black and White did it effectively. I don't really think Sun and Moon did it that well.
No, I like it. It's Pokemon. I like all Pokemon games, but there are pros and cons to each region, right?
Yeah, that's exactly something that can be put out. It's entirely preference, basically.
Yeah.
What you start off, like if someone started off in Gen 2, they will really, really like Gen 2. I'm the exception. I started off in Gen 3. I really like Gen 4 for some reason.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, exactly. Personal preference. Like, I know some people who just think Gen 1's the only good gen, right? That's fine.
And any gen after that is like, don't even talk to
fine.
me.
It's your opinion, but it's just so different. I know people who like Sun and Moon better than any other Pokemon game, right?
Yeah.
There's not one game that no one likes.
Yeah, every single game. It's a lot like Zelda. Every single like Zelda and Pokemon game are good. Same with Kirby. Like they have that consistency, right?
Yeah. This isn't really like, it's kind of related with gens, but we forgot. What about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games?
Oh, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. Yeah, I was thinking about that before. I didn't actually write it down, but I was going to mention that it started in Gen 3, right? Pokemon Mystery Dungeons. I don't know if you can search it up.
I'm pretty sure. Let me check. I'll check. It was like those games. It was so different. Then they were like enjoyable spin-offs. It's hard to explain how amazing they were. Yeah, the first Mystery Dungeons, Red and Blue, came out for Gen 3. Red came out on the Game Boy, or Blue came out on the DS.
Oh man, don't even forget about all the like the standard Pokemon games. Those revolutionized Pokemon.
And they like the story, and like it's very an emotional game.
Oh my god. I remember when I finished Red, I'm fucking like bawling my eyes out. It's one of the only times I cried to a game. I'm like no.
It's crazy. Like they were even good in Gen 4. The Mystery Dungeons that they had in Gen 4. What's it called? Explorers of Sky.
Yeah, Explorers of Sky.
Time and Darkness or whatever it was.
Yeah, I really wanted to get those type of games, but unfortunately I didn't. But I have watched playthroughs of it, and I enjoyed the
those
playthroughs.
games though. You can get ROMs for them.
Yeah, but they're kind of old.
Yeah, I know. But after that, Gen 5's Mystery Dungeon, it wasn't that great. From what I heard and from seeing gameplay, they made it too simple.
Yeah. And that's basically kind of what we went over. We went over all the generations and kind of explained why we actually disliked them. Once again, I'm Slaking Retaliation, and this is...
Buzz. Hello. Bye-bye.
We'll catch you all later. Have an amazing day, everyone.
I heard zigzagoon.